Receivers. It's one of the most notable positions in NFL history. And whether these coveted individuals are built like the compact Steve Smith or the physical specimen Calvin Johnson, the truth is, when a game comes down to a single play, there might not be a more critical player on the field. In this video, I'm going to be taking you on a deep dive into NFL draft history, going round by round, scouring decades of data to find the greatest and most accomplished receivers the league has ever seen. But here's the deal, you could have 4 Calvin Johnsons lined up on offense, and this wouldn't help you at all if your O-line didn't protect your quarterback, kind of like browsing the internet at home without the use of a VPN. And at that point, why not go with the fastest VPN on the planet, and today's sponsor, NordVPN. So a common cybersecurity threat is password attacks. Typically, most people are happy to use the same simple password for multiple accounts. Essentially, you're running the same play over and over, which allows hackers easier access to break in. The solution to this is to use NordPass, which is a password manager that generates and automatically fills in strong passwords. This is a separate product and can be purchased at checkout along with NordVPN. You can turn on Dark Web Monitor, which is available with both NordPass and NordVPN, to get alerts about your credentials that appear on underground hacker websites. But like a complex defense, threats are everywhere. And online, common cybersecurity threats include malware, ransomware, and phishing threats amongst others. And NordVPN is here to help you with all of these. Grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/KTO to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, plus 4 additional months for free. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. To get some perspective of just how much impact first-round receivers have had on the NFL landscape, let's glance at the 2022 receiving stats. Among the top 15 receivers in terms of yards, just about half are former first-rounders. And when you take a look at first-rounders by themselves, the top 10 all had over 1,000 yards last season. Now, to get a broader view of how first-rounders have done historically, I gathered data on every single receiver drafted from 1985 to 2015 via Pro Football Reference. And in that 30-year sample, 114 were drafted in the first round. And from that, we have 87 multi-year starters, 39 Pro Bowlers, 20 first-team All-Pros, and so far, 6 inducted Hall of Famers. There has been so many notable first-round receivers that I'm not going to name them all. The standard is higher for these dudes, so I'll simply take all the Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers and place them on the screen in 3 tiers. There's about a dozen or so names in tier 3 that all had or are continuing to have spectacular careers. There's also some young blossoming stars in the current NFL that have a chance to make it on this list one day. Then, to take it to the next level of legendary, from their freakish combination of size, speed, and ball skills, Moss and Johnson are both considered the greatest talents of their eras, each holding amazing single-season records. There was nothing quite like watching them be unstoppable, no matter how many dudes they had covering them. But standing on his own, on top of a mountain of all-time receiving talents, Jerry Rice. You could describe Rice's greatness in plenty of ways, but what truly separates him is his longevity.
Gannon, little fade into the end zone, caught by Jerry Rice for the 200th touchdown of his.
At the age of 40, Rice managed to make the Pro Bowl with 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns. Just to give perspective, no other receiver in NFL history has even made a roster at that age. And only 2 receivers in 2022 over the age of 30 reached 1,000 yards, and they just barely turned 30. This unprecedented longevity continues to preserve Rice's career receiving records, which seem unbreakable. He leads by such a vast amount that the difference between Rice and second place could hold up a very respectable career on its own. Of course, I can't forget to mention the fact that he made 10 first-team All-Pros and 2 All-Decade teams, all while being the greatest performing receiver in Super Bowl history. As one of the most graceful and consistent talents we've ever witnessed, Jerry Rice is not only the first-round GOAT, but the GOAT of all receivers, period. As expected, the second round is slightly less productive than the first round. Using that same 30-year dataset that I previously brought up, you'll notice a small dip in percentages across the board. But the most staggering difference between the two rounds is the huge drop-off in first-team All-Pros, or in other words, guys who became the best or second best receiver in the league in any given year. Now, as far as the GOAT argument is concerned, 7 guys rise above the rest, with 6 of those in Tier 2. These receivers are guys who did not or have not made the Hall of Fame. Of course, a guy like Davante Adams seems like a surefire bet to make it if his career continues the way it's going. But as of now, the GOAT of second-round receivers, and the only one drafted in the Super Bowl era to make the Hall of Fame, is Isaac Bruce. Hey, wait a minute. Is that the same guy as that dude in the corner? While making this video, I did a double take and had to confirm to make sure that this wasn't the same guy. Turns out these are 2 different receivers. So I decided to look more into this, and upon further inspection, I was shocked at the information I found out about these 2. So Henry Ellard was drafted by the Rams in the 2nd round of 1983, and he went on to have an amazing career with them. By 1993, Ellard had become the greatest receiver in Rams history, earning 3 Pro Bowl nods and setting many team records. Then, as his production began to slip and the team fell to irrelevancy, the 2 parties decided to split. In the following NFL draft, the Rams selected 2nd-round receiver Isaac Bruce to replace him, and Bruce decided to wear number 80. Considering that the best receiver in franchise history wore that number, this was a bold decision. But amazingly, Bruce did that decision justice. Isaac Bruce went on to become the all-time leader in receiving yards among second-rounders. And who did he have to pass to take over the number 1 spot? Henry Ellard. And just one more fun fact to add on to that, Ellard played for the Rams when they were in LA, which was just a 3 or 4 hour drive from where he grew up, and played college football. Isaac Bruce, on the other hand, played for the Rams mostly in St. Louis, which was just 4 hours from where he went to college. Anyways, to get back on track and to wrap up this section, Isaac Bruce's longevity, his legendary 1995 season, and his huge performance in Super Bowl 34 are what make him the 2nd-round GOAT. By the time we reach the 3rd round, the sheer volume of high-performing players rapidly diminishes. In 2022, only 1 3rd-round receiver cracked the top 15 in terms of yards. Now, in fairness, Cooper Kupp and Keenan Allen both got injured last season, so that most likely would have changed this outcome. But even when you include them, just 7 3rd-rounders were in the top 50, which is half the amount of 2nd-rounders. The 30-year dataset that I previously mentioned shows us that less than half of 3rd-rounders become multi-year starters, and just 11% of them turn into Pro Bowlers. Now, even though there's been more All-Pros in the 3rd round than the 2nd, this is due to the influence of special teams. So when it comes to the argument of the best 3rd-round receiver ever, 3 names rise to the top. In 3rd, the former Super Bowl MVP, Hines Ward, who amassed 1,000 receptions over his career. In 2nd, the 5-time Pro Bowler who ranks 8th all-time in career receiving yards, Steve Smith Sr. And now, coming in as the true GOAT of 3rd-round receivers, the 5-time first-team All-Pro, Terrell Owens. With a larger-than-life personality, Owens was built for primetime.
25 yards on 3rd down. This time, in and out for Terrell Owens. Smoked Ray Buchanan. Owens into the end zone, and the 49ers win it in overtime.
Terrell Owens was a phenom, and this was due to his unique combination of physical strength, elite top-end speed, surprising elusiveness for a guy his size, and great hands. He was also very durable and demonstrated insane toughness when he played in the Super Bowl with a leg fracture and torn ligament in his ankle. Not only did he play in that game, but he played amazingly, putting up 9 catches for 122 yards. All these factors led him to becoming 3rd all-time in receiving touchdowns. And perhaps one of the most underrated parts of Owens' career was that he was named first-team All-Pro as a member of 3 different franchises. Of course, his career does get overshadowed by his antics and public feuds with teammates throughout his time in the NFL. But overall, he is definitely the greatest 3rd-round receiver of all time, and he's the only 3rd-round receiver in the Super Bowl era to make the Hall of Fame. Arriving at day 3 in the NFL draft usually means one thing: you're looking for role players. On average, the top 12 receivers in any given draft are off the board by now. Of the 123 drafted from 1985 to 2015, just 6 became Pro Bowlers. Even just finding a 4th-round receiver who will make a noticeable impact is unlikely. In 2022, just 3 guys cracked the top 50, with Amon-Ra St. Brown being the only one to reach 1,000 yards. Now, even though the odds are stacked against them, there's been a small amount of truly great 4th-round receivers, 5 of which rank in the top 30 all-time in yards. But the true GOAT debate comes down to Hall of Famers Steve Largent and Andre Reed. Both guys managed to reach 7 Pro Bowls and finished top 20 all-time in career receiving yards. Andre Reed was an excellent route runner with great hands. But most of all, he was praised for his ability to make yards after the catch. He was a gazelle in the open field. While Largent, on the other hand, despite being less physically talented, is widely considered to have some of the best hands in NFL history. And he played his entire career with no gloves. If you played football, you know how much of a difference this makes. There's a reason you rarely see receivers nowadays with no gloves. Ultimately, I can't find enough evidence to choose either way, so the 4th-round GOAT is a tie. I like to call the 5th round the special teams round, because in terms of receivers, more guys make an impact as a returner or gunner than a pass catcher. In fact, even the data shows that the 5th-round Pro Bowlers, which is only 6% of them, are special teamers. The standards by the 5th round have changed so much that becoming a starter warrants notoriety, and dudes like Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Hunter Renfrow, and Darius Slayton are 3 of the top 5 5th-round receivers today. But surprisingly, there are 3 guys in the league today from the 5th round that are truly spectacular. That is Stefon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, and Matthew Slater. Starting with Diggs, this dude was a surprise rookie for the Rams back in 2015. 2 years later, he would make one of the most iconic catches in recent NFL history.
Fire to the right side, caught by Diggs. Stay up! Oh my God! 30! No way! Touchdown! Are you kidding?
With multiple Pro Bowls to his name and earning first-team All-Pro in 2020, Diggs is closing in on becoming the all-time leader in career receiving yards among 5th-rounders. But I do believe the 5th-round GOAT in terms of receivers goes to Tyreek Hill. Now, I think it is worth noting that Hill dropped to the 5th round due to off-the-field issues. Even with that said, Hill surprisingly burst onto the scene as a rookie, earning first-team All-Pro honors as a kick returner. And from there, he only got more dominant. Hill has become widely regarded as the fastest dude in the NFL, and beyond that, he developed into such a reliable and explosive playmaker. And even outside of Kansas City, Tyreek Hill produced his 4th first-team All-Pro season with Miami in 2022. In his 7 NFL seasons so far, he's made the Pro Bowl every single season. Now, before moving on, I did mention one more name about a minute ago that many of you may not even recognize, and that was Matthew Slater. If you don't know who this is, that's because this guy doesn't play wide receiver. So how could he be mentioned in this video? Well, that's because after being drafted in the 5th round, Slater became a standout on special teams. And in the words of Bill Belichick,
they would say the same thing about Matt Slater in a kicking game. I don't know if there's ever been or ever going to be a better player than Matt Slater as an overall special teams player and the leadership that he's brought to the team.
To this point, Matthew Slater has made an unprecedented 10 Pro Bowl appearances as a special teamer. This is the most all time. Amazingly, Slater is going to finish his career as the GOAT of special teams, and his impact will most likely get him a spot in the Hall of Fame. What's pretty cool about this guy is that his father, Jackie Slater, not only played in the league as well, but he's in the Hall of Fame. And crazy enough, he was an offensive lineman. The size difference between these two is crazy, and the fact that they made such impacts in different ways is one of the coolest things that I've read in regards to the NFL. The 6th round is a barren wasteland when it comes to notable starting receivers. Typically, you're just hoping that these guys consistently make the final roster. The guys who even get a second contract are among the notable ones. And when it comes to making any sort of real impact, Currently, Donovan Peoples-Jones was the only one ranked in the top 50 in receiving yards in 2022. Of the 141 sixth-round receivers drafted from 1985 to 2015, only 2 of them made a Pro Bowl as a receiver. When it comes to the GOAT of sixth-round receivers, kind of like quarterbacks, there's no debate, because the gap is so massive. This honor goes to Antonio Brown. After bursting onto the scene in 2011, this dude became virtually unguardable. By 2014, you could make an argument that he was the best receiver in the game, and this lasted about 4 to 5 years. His mix of footwork, route running, quickness, ball tracking, and hands made him the perfect receiver. Of course, this all has been overshadowed by his bizarre behavior over the last few years, and ultimately, his actions may have cost him a spot in the Hall of Fame. So I'll turn it over to you guys. Do you think Antonio Brown deserves to be in the Hall of Fame despite his erratic behavior? Let me know in the comments down below. Alright, let's move on to the final round. Despite more receivers being drafted in round 7 than any of the others, it's almost entirely void of notable impact. Over 90% of them never become starters, and the odds of them even making the team aren't in their favor. In 2022, there wasn't a single 7th round receiver amongst the top 50. And as of now, Richie James and Noah Brown are among the best throughout the entire league. Even if you combine their numbers, they would still be outside the top 10. There hasn't been a Pro Bowl 7th round receiver since 2007, and only 3 since 1985, which means there are notable ones worth sharing on screen that didn't even make a Pro Bowl. Now, in fairness, Edelman and Colston are among some of the greatest players ever to not accomplish that feat. When it comes to recent NFL history, these are the best from this round. But including all of NFL history, the GOAT debate comes down to Harold Carmichael, aka the tallest receiver ever, and Bob Hayes, the fastest player ever. Carmichael was surprisingly graceful for being 6'8", and even though he did take advantage of his height on jump balls, Carmichael sort of revolutionized the quick screen. It was one of the major factors as to how he made 4 Pro Bowls. Bob Hayes, on the other hand, revolutionized the game as well. He was an Olympic gold medalist in the 100 meter and world record holder in a variety of sprints at the time. And his speed torched NFL defenses so bad that he's literally responsible for defenses creating zone schemes and corners playing bump and run. Overall, these 2 guys both revolutionized the game in some way, so it only makes sense that this debate results in a tie. Beyond the NFL draft, there has been a few legendary undrafted free agent receivers who've made their mark in the league. But as of today, there is only one undrafted receiver to make the Hall of Fame.
Please welcome wide receiver Drew Pearson.
All right. How about them Cowboys? I want to thank the Eagle fans for allowing me to have a career in the NFL.
In the end zone, caught for a touchdown. Drew Pearson.
I am honored as an undrafted free agent to be selected to make the Cowboys' 2nd round draft pick.
He's going long, down the near sideline for Drew Pearson. Pearson makes the catch at the 5, touchdown!
And on behalf of the 5-time world champion Dallas Cowboys, Hall of Fame owner Jerry Jones, Gene Jones and the Jones family, Coach Jason Garrett, all the Cowboy players that played before me, that played with me, and played after me.
Baltimore trying the blitz. Dallas picks it up, and Drew Pearson should pick up 6. All right. Oh, that's pretty.